So as we move on to the next panel, Teaching Innovation for Sustainable Development Challenges and Possibilities. So I would like to call upon our esteemed panelists for the same, Mr. Arpan Stephen, E-Learning Head, Arabian Gulf University, Kingdom of Bahrain, UAE, who is the moderator of this session. Dr. Chitrai Ponselvan, Director Research, Curtin University, Dubai. Raman Batra, Executive Vice President, Noida Institute of Engineering and Technology, Greater Noida. I would also like to call Angela Hamouda, Faculty of Innovation, Technology and Entrepreneurship, College of Business and Economics. Dr. Sambhav Shiva, who is the Head and Assistant Professor of Department of Biotechnology, Nizam College, Hyderabad. Welcome all our esteemed panelists for the session, Teaching Innovation for Sustainable Development Challenges and Possibilities. I hand over the stage to Arpan Stephen, who is our moderator for the session today.
Thank you so much. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for attending this conference since morning, and thank you all who are here for staying back for the session. This is the second last panel, and I presume I've been fortunate to attend all of the sessions, not missing out. And we have some really great leaders from all over GCC. I personally am from Bahrain. I've traveled from Bahrain just to attend this conference. For me, this is the 10th year with World Education Summit. And I really, when they asked me for the topic, I chose this topic because this is slightly drifting from all the topics that we've been discussing. And we will not just be working on and speaking about the educational or just the technological part of innovation in sustainable development, but probably environmental factors, socioeconomic factors, and so on. Okay? And we're going to do slightly different. It will be an open floor for all the panelists, so I'm going to ask questions, and anyone who feels like answering can answer. It's not very specific to anyone, just to relieve some pressure. And if you have any contribution to make as well, why don't you lift your hands, and then we'd love to hear from you as well. But we'll try and save up on time, okay? So we'll try and keep this session as short as we can and more precise. So when we talk about sustainable development, just to introduce as a topic, we're actually talking about our current needs, whether we are able to handle our current needs, not compromising on what our future generations will affect. Like, for example, we're living in a disruptive world right now in which technologies that was available 20 years back is completely outdated. And there were many points that I saw and heard about a lot of panelists who were saying that, there are people from academia who've done their PhDs 20 years back. What about the research? What about, their knowledge? Maybe they did PhD on some topic related to Windows 11 or XP, and that's completely outdated. And also the point where people were talking about somehow the challenge in bridging the gap between academia and industry. So I would really want our panelists to speak on that as well. But first and foremost, I'll open this ground on understanding what are the current challenges that we face in sustained development. And it can be educational, it can be technological, it can be social, economic, environmental factors as well. And just to tell you, the concept of sustained development came in 1980s when people started realizing that there's a resource depletion, environmental degradation, and so on. So we will touch the environmental factor as well. So what, according to you, are the challenges, according to you, based on your fields of interest in sustainable development?
Shall I go? Good afternoon, everyone. I am Professor Ponselvan from Curtin University. I am the Director of Research, Head of School of Science and Engineering at Curtin, Dubai. Curtin University, Dubai is a branch campus of Curtin, Australia. We have 6 global campuses, including Dubai. So, as per your question, let me start with the IPCC report, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. According to the IPCC, children born today, when they reach 30 years of age, they will be living between the disasters. That means flooding, drought, water shortage, energy shortage, material shortage, all these disasters will be very frequent, as well as the intensity of these disasters will be very high. That's what the recent report says. So we cannot ignore these reports. More than 180 nations, more than 1,000 scientists participate in preparing these reports. Therefore, we cannot ignore these reports. If this projection becomes reality, nobody can live well. That is not the place we want to live. Some of us may not be here that time, but that is not the place we want to leave our children and go. According to United Nations projections, on November 15th last year, 8 o'clock in the morning UTC time, the 8th billionth baby born on this planet. So we are officially more than 8 billion people. The United Nations celebrated this day as Day of 8 billion. The Day of 7 billion was celebrated on 2011, October 31st. So in 11 years' time, there is 1 billion population increase. 100 years before, the population was 1.9 billion. That means there is 400% increase in the population, 4 times increase in the population. But is there any increase in the size of the planet? No. We are living in a one planet. Many countries, we are already running out of oil, water, energy, and many other critical resources. Therefore, teaching sustainable development, not only the population increase, the consumption pattern also is increased. Currently, we are living with 1.7 planets equivalent amount of resources. That means our grandfather, grandmother, they did not have mobile phones, laptops, fridges, air conditioning systems, cars, constructions, all these were not there. But today, we have all these sophisticated equipment, all these materials, when we extract, mining, drilling, manufacturing, refining, processing, transporting, assembling, packaging, using, even disposal, all these require energy. That energy comes from fossil fuel. Therefore, climate change. Therefore, we need to address very important issue it is. So this is what is required for us.
Yeah, I would like to add a few points to this question. The basic challenges are occurring in the sustainable development in innovations in the education system is one. The first thing is the lack of awareness about the sustainable development in innovations. And the most of the students, they're not aware about what is sustainable development and who are not integrating the sustainable development in their academic curriculum. The second one thing is that there is a resistance to change because the conventional teaching methodology is still following in some developing countries. So there is a change in the teaching methodology. And third one is the complexity of the subject, because to overcome this complexity, an interdisciplinary approach is mandatory and it should be integrated with the academic curriculum. So these are the main challenges we need to discuss and to maintain the sustainable development in education and innovation.
Good afternoon, everybody. As an entrepreneurship educator, one of the key challenges that I find at this stage is trying to create awareness around sustainability and how we can link innovation with sustainability. So students at third level institutions are typically engaging in entrepreneurship and innovation modules. So how do we make them aware of the links between innovation and entrepreneurship and sustainability through the identification of the problems, whether they be environmental or social problems in their community? So I think that there's a challenge there in terms of creating that awareness. So another challenge is trying to get more alignment between industry and academia in terms of what we're doing. Yes, through the research it's very, very important, but very much through the alignment of the education. Where do we align them in a way that it can have impact on our students? From my experience in the UAE, I'm new here. I'm 25 years in entrepreneurship and innovation education, but most of that was in Ireland. So I'm looking at this now within a UAE context, and I think that there's a challenge in terms of bringing together industry and academia in a way that can be more applied. And not only industry and academia, but bringing together community organizations as well. Okay.
Very good evening to all. So I think very important 4 words for this particular topic is pledge, act, change, and transform. So I divide them into 4 different words. So the most important thing here is pledge. So every individual who's been exposed towards sustainable environment need to pledge, and this pledge need to start from early days of school education. From villages to everywhere, that pledge is important, that we need to somewhere support SDG goals. So I was reading one of the report, SDG goal 4, which is education. During COVID, I don't know how many of you know, that more than 27.3 million students will not go to schools after COVID. Because of Ukraine-Russia crisis, more than 1.4 million students are today doing online education, or there are many of them which are not able to do education. So coming from a higher education, the most important thing is to educate the community. Once they are educated, they can understand the value of sustainability. So deep-rooted everywhere need to understand that we need to pledge. Then comes the act. Like for example, we are attending the conference today in Dubai, and I find next time we attend this, it need to be more on a sustainable way. We might have used 2,000 plastic bottles today. We might have used more than 500 plastic ID cards, and so many things where the act is also, everybody is exposed, but we need to act. And then it comes to change. There are a lot of programs which United Nations today running under UNEP. Turn the Tide is one of the program where a student from kindergarten in a very innovative way being learn about sustainability. And then transform. Then only the transformation will happen in the country. So the most important thing is to pledge everyone together and collaborate together to work on sustainability development goals.
Just moving on from that point, I think it's very, very important. I think that there's a challenge to create a culture around entrepreneurship, innovation and sustainability. And with that culture, yes, we're focusing on the next generation and the students, but in order for that to have a real impact, that culture has to start with buy-in from leadership. So it has to be a bottom-up but also a top-down approach, that we get the leadership engaged in the higher education institutions and in education across the board to make that happen. Could be through projects that are initiated between the institutions and the Ministry of Education, for example. But I think that buy-in from the top is very, very important, or otherwise it comes to a standstill. The blocks are there. So the only real removers of those blocks are the people in charge, the decision makers. So getting buy-in from them from the word go in any of the projects that are there to drive the innovation, entrepreneurship and sustainability agenda.
Yeah, that was my next question. But again, we can probably, all of us can share from this. How do you think we as educators we can foster a culture of innovation among our students and encourage them to think critically about sustainability challenge?
Yes, as academics, it is our responsibility to nurture our students. How the world will be tomorrow is determined by how we nurture our students today. Because they are the very important stakeholders of the future. They are the ones who are going to stay longer on this planet. Therefore, they are the one going to suffer more because of climate change. Therefore, it is very important for us to nurture our students. As future leaders, future professionals, future engineers, future scientists, their energy is what makes the difference. Therefore, we need to create that awareness. Positive change begins with an awareness. So that's very important.
For this, two important aspects from my point of view, that the student-centric learning process should be there to overcome these kind of challenges. So when the student-centric learning, when you implement in their higher education, the innovations will takes place. Because the students have the ability to think out of the box, and we must change the learning methodology, and with the help of technology we can overcome this. So that how is technology useful for their sustainable development innovations, and how this kind of technology, that how we can better use for this one. Example, in the previous discussion we discussed about ChatGPT. As per my knowledge, the ChatGPT should not be implemented at schooling level, first of all, because the schooling is the area where students can learn the things, but we can utilize the technology for the better way only, not for the how to use the technology and what is the important technology, what is its parameters and how it is functioning. Everything should be there in the sustainable development.
Okay, my idea of putting it across is instead of taking it at the theoretical way, from younger days it should be learning by doing. So we are teaching a student how to recycle a paper, how to make their own fertilizer, how rainwater harvesting works. So once learning by doing comes into a culture, so when a student grows, the effect is into exponential times. So learning by doing is something which should be there. The way we have compulsory subjects by statutory bodies like English, physics, maths, similarly sustainable development goals need to be exposed to the students, where they learn by doing it. The way they make projects, the way they work into application, or the startups using entrepreneurship. So they need to somewhere start doing it from scratch, and they should know the value of using recycled stuff. Yeah.
Yes, I commend the learning by doing. That's my mantra in terms of applied entrepreneurship. Since arriving in UAEU, I've been assigned this magnificent innovation lab, which is a tremendous platform for students to learn by doing. And also, it promotes interdisciplinary thinking. And I think that the interdisciplinary platform is very, very important for this agenda to move forward. And that interdisciplinary work has to go beyond the realms of the entrepreneurship curriculum. We need to identify other areas of the students' programs where interdisciplinary work can take place, where students work, business students will work with engineers, will work with people in tech, will work with people in humanities. So therefore, there's much more likely for the empathy to be developed and the understanding and the awareness to be developed and drive forward from a very, very early stage. So that interdisciplinary work then, I think students, if they're trained to think in an interdisciplinary way, they will take that forward into the workplace, into companies, whether they're running a business or whether they're working for a company. So they're implementing entrepreneurship in an entrepreneurial capacity. And in that way, the links between innovation and sustainability are much, much more likely to become a reality. Also, I think that from a management perspective, we need to come out of the silo format of thinking. So if we think in our silos in terms of in our own little focus, and we don't think outside of that, and we don't engage with people outside of our disciplines, it begs the question as to how we're going to move forward with this agenda. So I think, again, it has to start at the top.
Very well said. Okay, a question from my side. Do you think, and this is open for you as well, as most of the people are from the education industry, do you think it's the sole responsibility of educators to inculcate this in your students, or per se anyone? Or if you don't agree to them, then what do you think of the partnership collaboration between education institutions and other stakeholders such as NGOs, government, and other stakeholders as such in promoting sustainable development.
Yeah, well said. For this, the community should play a crucial role in the sustainable development. So because when communities means it's a whole body, it covers all NGOs and scientific associations, should make understand the students about the sustainable development. They should give some problem solver, the problem-based questionnaires to them to make them to understand what is its importance and how to think and how to solve these problems. So communities should play a crucial role in the sustainable development. Apart from this, educators also, the educator should learn that how the technology is evolved its dimension, and the role of technology in the innovations in sustainable development is very, very mandatory and important.
I think we should have a separate subject, sustainable development, engineering sustainable development in every curriculum. Whether they study business management, fashion design, whatever course they study, they should have one subject particularly for sustainable development. And universities, colleges should have an environmental club, water conservation, energy conservation clubs. All these should work with the NGOs and should have a lot of collaborations, because we are already running out of water, energy, materials. If you see from India, 1947, how much water an average Indian had, today we have only 20% of that. And in 2030, it is going to be 7% of that. So thousands of rivers have gone dry. Materials, for example, 20 years before, if you go down 500 meters or 1 kilometer down, we used to get good quality minerals, copper, aluminum, coal, silver. But today we need to go 5 kilometers, 6 kilometers down. Then also we don't get enough good quality minerals. Going down is not a simple process. It is an energy intensive process. And that mining activities will happen in the remote locations, and that all we need to use diesel generators. We cannot use renewable energy resources for that, and therefore fossil fuels we need to use. So all these things should have separate topics in the curriculum.
I find responsibility lies on the shoulder of the community for sure, but as far as I come from education background, so we need to be more responsible for student to make them exposed about the way nature works. Today, humankind is playing with nature, the way climate change is happening. I'll give you an example, what has happened recently at Joshi Mutt in India. Similarly, there are many examples world over which is happening because of climate change, because of environmental hazard, which humans have created. So somewhere everybody needs to be responsible, but coming from educational background, we carry much more larger responsibility to educate the community about sustainable development goals on a larger role.
I think that the new generation, we'll call them Generation Z, I think that they're much more aware of social innovation and social innovation as a value creation than this current generation is. I'm finding that students are coming up with lots of solutions to problems that they're identifying in the community, socially innovative ideas. I'm finding that any links that I create with the community, NGOs, representatives of social enterprise and community outreach centres, that the value there is significant in terms of the learning of the students, but also the learning from the organisations, from the students in terms of when they come in and they talk about their ideas and the problems that they're identifying in the community. So I think that that relationship is hugely valuable. At the moment, it's quite ad hoc in terms of how it's structured between higher educational institutions and those organisations. So I think the more that that can be structured in a way that it's more coherent, it's more consistent, and also that it's more of a win-win for both parties. I think there's huge benefits there in terms of potential internships for students going forward. That yes, they might be going into relevant placements in industry, but we need more students to go into NGOs for internships and to explore what those platforms actually do in terms of sustainable development.
Well said. So you mentioned about students trying to solve their own problems and finding solutions to their own problems. I have a question, and maybe just one or two can share their opinion on that. What skills do you think that students need to possess to be successful innovators in the field of sustainable development? And to add to your point, Doc, as well, if anybody can respond to this as well, how can we ensure that these skills and knowledge is incorporated within the curricula and teaching? As you mentioned that, maybe create a syllabus, maybe create a subject, but how do you think this can be incorporated in the curricula at this stage?
So we teach...
just one or two.
I'll finish it. IPAT equation that is become very common in every syllabus, where I is the impact, environmental impact, acidification impact, photochemical smoke, whatever impacts. P is the population, A is the affluence, and T is the technology. So I is equal to PAT, we say. So let's say, for example, in 2050, the population is going to be 1.5 times the population in 2000. And the affluence of people in 2050 is going to be 10 times more than in 2000. Impact always we want to reduce. So let us say the impact should be 50% less. That means 0.5 times what is there in 2000. So to accommodate all these things, that means population increase, the affluent prosperity of people are increasing, and to accommodate all this, the technology, how it should come. So if you put this I is equal to PAT, this equation, then we can say it's about 25 times the power, technology should increase, the innovation should come up. That means water conservation technology, energy conservation technology, waste management techniques, pollution control technologies, all these innovations should come up, so to accommodate all these things.
My main point of view, because I'm academic background, an interdisciplinary approach must be there in their academic curricula. So the students must have knowledge about the economics, students must have knowledge about intellectual property rights, students must have knowledge about the leadership qualities, students must have knowledge about basic economics and financial matters, at the same time design thinking. So these are the interdisciplinary approach definitely play a crucial role in the sustainable development, in the innovations. In generally what we do in the academic research areas, we see the problem and we design a solution. A similar way matters, a small problem should be given to the students, what community is facing exactly. So students will develop the qualities of how to maintain the academic curricula and what kind of innovation need to be done and how the problem is solved. Based on that, the real-time problem should be addressed by the students when they are learning in the colleges and higher educations.
I think that we'll call them maybe the soft skills, very, very important. Skills that they're kind of a slow burner. They'll slowly develop over time and evolve over time. And exposure to platforms where they get to develop these skills in an interdisciplinary capacity, I think is the way to slowly develop these skills. Students, yes, problem solving is very important, but being able to identify the problem and being aware that, shift happens. We're living in a world that's changing at a rate that's a significant rate of change that we can't comprehend or keep up with. So developing that skill set that they have their antenna up all the time in a way that they can identify how changes are impacting on their environment wherever they're working. I think teamwork, team skills are very important, and being able to develop that entrepreneurial team, whether it be within a company, public, private, or in an entrepreneurial context. Many students don't like working in teams. They don't like it. You know, doctor, can I do a solo project? I have this wonderful idea. I'll always say no, but I'll take them aside and I'll explain to them why the teamwork and the development of the team skills is so, so important. So teamwork, I would say, and even helping them to identify the strengths and the weaknesses in their team. That we're all not brilliant at everything, and trying to identify what those strengths are in their team and to capitalize on those strengths. And where there are weaknesses, to identify them and develop innovative ways of filling that gap. Leadership skills. Yes, they need the hard skills, the tech, the business skills, the economics. They need the core, the knowledge. Perhaps they need to identify if there's an accounting or a finance person on their team. So I think being able to develop a team in itself is a skill set. Okay, so I think to answer your question in terms of what skills do they need, I think they need the hard skills, but they need the soft skills as well.
So, I think it's very important today to talk about 21st century skills relating to sustainable development. So very important skill comes as design thinking. Now today a student who wants to work or wants to start a startup, if a student is being taught the design thinking process, the design thinking tools, they can very well use it and they can start working over sustainability. Second is critical thinking. Critical thinking, again, it's very important. Every student need to exposed towards critical thinking process. Creativity, emotional intelligence. So important, emotional intelligence. Leadership, as she told. Collaboration, we need to collaborate. Like for example, there is a number of higher education institutes which are here and everybody working in their own way into achieving sustainable development goals. If we can have a unified newsletter coming, talking about the best practices, talking about case studies which are being practiced, and that's how learning and that's how examples can be set up. So these are the few skills I think very important.
I think these are very, very important points. I really liked especially the emotional quotient that we actually miss in most of our educational setup. Okay, there's one last question, but before that I wanted to just pitch in one more question because it was something that we've been talking about in all of the sessions, and I'm pretty much interested to know from all of you, how do you think that, AI applications such as ChatGPT, Google Bard, or maybe many more that are available right now, do you think they complement to sustainable development? Or what do you think is the effect of use of such kind of technology in sustainable development, especially when we are trying to future-proof our future generations to take care of their own needs? What do you think will AI technologies such as ChatGPT and Google Bard and so on have effect on this? And if there's anyone, if you after this who wants to
Yeah,
talk
definitely we must adopt the AI, but recently in India, everyone knows that one, the AI is not the supermodel for the human brain compared to that one, because recently in India, the Union Public Service Commission conducted a exam for the AI based exam, but the AI is failed to answer 50% of the UPSC questions. That means the human brain is the more talent than the AI. But some compared to when it comes to ChatGPT is a algorithm or artificial intelligence. Whatever the data is available in the entire data mining, it does the data mining and gives the ideas. So it is us to take in a structural way that how this AI, how we can use this platform and what is the importance of ChatGPT. Now BioGPT is also came. So the BioGPT is do the data mining and gives ideas about the biological problems and healthcare problems. So AI is going to play a crucial role in the healthcare system, especially in the life sciences. Because I'm from research background, so in general, this definitely AI is going to play a crucial role in the drug discovery and development and healthcare systems. So the ChatGPT is going to play a crucial role, but we must ensure that the data that what you are generating to ChatGPT is reliable or not. Blindly, you can't argue, or blind, you can't say that this data what generated is correct. So ultimately, the human evaluation must be there to ensure that the data whatever generated by these AI platforms. Thank you.
I like to quote an example from a startup coming out of our institute. The startup name is Unico. They have been our students who made a sustainable development startup. So the journey started with, again, a learning. They did a survey over a landfill area, which has cigarette butts, which has cork, lot of many plastics and all that. So they came up with a unique concept where they started making recycled trophies, recycled ID cards, recycled pots, recycled fertilizers. Now that particular startup is being adopted by UN, WHO, and so many companies are being there. So ultimately, it's very important that AI coming into picture. So these students now implemented an AI model around it. They are calculating the amount of landfill going into a city like Delhi and the kind of requirement they have in terms of production expansion they want. So AI is going to play a very, very important role. You talk about any technology, the challenge is, or the question is not that AI is going to take your job. Ultimately, any technology which comes for a change and is going to generate more jobs till the time you know what AI is and how you are to use it. So I think it can be a really great step if technologies like ChatGPT and all that comes in here.
Yeah, I would agree totally with that. I think that we, as educators, need to be very entrepreneurial in our approach here, and we need to be open to change and open to embracing this and recognizing the fear factor and the risk factor and the natural sort of instinct to be perhaps the fear of failure. I think that ways of perhaps overcoming this and helping to embrace it in education is through interdisciplinary work, but with that rigorous integrative assessment, so that it's designed in a way that it's capturing the AI in a way that it can be very constructive and ethical. So I think, because a big concern is the whole ethical consideration, and also part of the embracing this would be creating an awareness and an ethical awareness amongst not only students but faculty as well, that we're we're all aware of the ethical considerations, and that is incorporated into the whole realm of delivery.
Very well said. And I'd like to add just a point as well in this thing, especially when you talk about these kind of innovations in ChatGPT, especially for education institutes or for your courses that require you to submit thesis, or maybe for research purposes as well. There was someone who asked a question, and that question was, there are many institutions who are moving away from summative assessments in terms of quizzes and exams, especially master's MBA colleges, and are moving towards assessment based on project submission alone. And that can be really detrimental in case you're relying on these things as well, as most of the submissions that you get would be from ChatGPT now, or Google per se. But I think the best solution to this would be to have a very solid assessment, as you can say. I mean, of course, you cannot restrict students from the source of knowledge, But of course, what they've learned, you will be able to assess from the assessment that you have. So a proper, robust assessment strategy must be there. For the final question, I think we'll be saving 20 minutes of our time. Quickly, I'll just ask, how do you think we can ensure that the knowledge and skill gained from teaching innovation for sustainable development are applied beyond classroom and used to create meaningful change in the society? How do you think it can be?
Yeah. Yeah, that is very much required, because individual human beings, particularly the younger generation, should be conscious about the danger that's happening because of the climate change. Since everybody uses water, energy, materials, so everybody is responsible for climate change. If you just drink water, particularly in UAE, that water comes from the desalination plant. Pumping water, seawater to desalination plant, we need energy, and the water salt content has to be removed, removing salt, adding minerals into it, pumping water into different locations. All this takes energy that comes from fossil fuels. If we use materials, we use mobile phones, laptop, washing machine, refrigerator, all these materials, extraction, mining, processing, refining, all these steps takes energy. That energy comes from fossil fuel. We are in a conference room. 1 unit of electricity, if we consume, 1 kg of carbon dioxide is released to the atmosphere, if that comes from the fossil fuel. We come by car, bus. If we use 1 liter of petrol or diesel, around 3 kg of carbon dioxide is released to the atmosphere. 1 kg of LPG gas, if we use, 3 to 4 kg of carbon dioxide is released to the atmosphere. Just if you iron your shirt for 5 minutes, around 200 grams of carbon dioxide is released to the atmosphere. Average Indian every month is releasing 200 kg of carbon dioxide every month. That means around 108 meter cube of carbon dioxide. 108,000 liters of carbon dioxide is simply released to the atmosphere. From the entire planet, 1.3 million kg of carbon dioxide is released to the atmosphere in every second. All that goes to the atmosphere, and that atmosphere is, we have finite amount of space. We cannot stretch our atmosphere and make it big. Therefore, this problem is not only a rich person or a rich, poor, American, Indian, Emirati, whoever, everybody is responsible for climate change. Therefore, everybody should participate in climate change corrections. It is a global problem. It is not a problem of only one country, because we are all living in one planet. Due to political reasons or economic reasons, we have boundaries and borders. But otherwise, the atmosphere is common, the ocean is common. Therefore, it is the responsibility for the entire globe. Thank you.
Yeah, already I told you that about the interdisciplinary approach. So interdisciplinary approach must be there in the sustainable development and innovations. Because suppose example, I am a biotechnologist, I have products, and I want to design that how this product can be commercialized and how it enter into the market. So for that I can't do everything on my own. So the students should take responsibility to approach the fellows of other departments, one from finance department, one from commerce department. So interdisciplinary approach must be there in any innovation, because innovation happens with the technology and science. So the value addition takes place when the marketing and the other management courses add their values to these products. So interdisciplinary approach is mandatory for the innovations in the academic institutions, and this interdisciplinary approach will be the solution for many problems. That's what I observed in education system.
As an entrepreneurship educator, nearly quarter of a century now, of course I'm very conscious of the metrics around, assignments and accreditation, credits, students getting the grades and so on. But I think that we also have to look at the holistic education and the responsibility for that. If we're going to look at creating potential change makers for the future, change makers that will have impact on the environment, on society, on communities, on all of us here. I'm getting old, going to be retired in a few years. I'm looking to these change makers as to how they can create an environment where I can enjoy my old age. Okay? So how do we do that? We have to look at education in a much more holistic way than we're currently looking at it. We have to look at how do we create an environment, a culture, where students will become very passionate about the environment, about sustainability. So looking at universities and higher education institutions developing initiatives that will develop this culture and move forward this agenda, so that we're not asking these questions in 10 years' time, that we have something to look back on where we have examples of best practice examples, that's something that's actually working and having impact. So I think that is the real challenge going forward, and that the metrics from the Ministry of Education are linking the university's performance to this criteria.
Okay. My take here is patents around sustainability, world around, should be made free. I'll give you a case study. For example, take a Singapore as a country. They never had their own water. They recycled, they made a technology, they made recycling so amazing that 94% of the water in Singapore today has been recycled. And it's a government organization which does it, and the name is New Water. If you go to Singapore, you'll find a New Water is there. Similarly, it's been followed in Dubai. So where a developed country is getting into technology, they make patents, it should be freely available for underdeveloped and developing countries. Where things like water, which is so essential for everybody to live on, can be available places where water is a scarcity. So ultimately, somewhere the science, technology, patents around sustainability should be on a free domain, that anyone can actually use it.
I just want to add, petroleum engineering. If you just Google it, you will know the best university to study petroleum engineering in Australia is our university, Curtin University. But we are discussing to stop offering this program from next year, because we don't want to teach fossil fuel things. We are going to convert this program into energy transition engineering. So universities are now coming up with not offering petroleum engineering, not plastic-free campuses. We know UK is going to phase out petrol, diesel in 2040. UAE has a clean energy strategy for 2050. All these are happening.
Thank you so much. I think we'll conclude the session. There are many takes from this session, I hope. Like, for example, the one you were talking about what I didn't know. And there might be many things that we have spoken that might be new to you. But I think one of the key takeaways that we can go home with is that it is our responsibilities as educators in this session or in this generation that has to incorporate this in our curricula at some point, so that, you're right. After 10 years from now, we should not be asking these kind of questions, perhaps not even have these kind of sessions if you have done it. So thank you, esteemed panelists, for this session. It was very enlightening, and thank you, the crowd, for being part of this session. Yeah, you have a question, or, okay. And after a question, we'll conclude, just so that in time. We have one question. Yeah, sure. Yeah. Do you have a mic?
Hello. Thank you for talking about soft skills. So what I'm going to say is that we all talked about awareness and being conscious. We know that if we want to have a culture or a community who thinks in development and innovation and sustainability, we have to lead from conscience to unconscious. I'll give an example. For example, the cars. When they invented the cars, first they took a ride and then they came with the decision that it's very dangerous. So they were conscious about the consequences of driving. And then, After a while, organizations, and then we have now, we do now exams to say that we drive safely. And when we drive safely and consciously. So, if I want to get everyone involved in a cultural way, I have to have an objective, the lifestyle. So if I want to, for example, have a student or a community or a country who want to think in a sustainable way, I have to lead him from conscious to unconscious, from being aware to have a habit, from, okay, I'm gonna do it, no, this is my lifestyle and I cannot live without it. So my question is, if we collaborate everyone, we involve everyone, we try to reach every person, individually or in community, do you think, in a way, like learn by doing, or like campaign of awareness, or like talking to governments and municipalities and whatever, do you think that we can lead a culture where the unconscious can be a lifestyle? Thank you.
I think very amazing question. Thanks. I like to answer in that way where if we find world is a community and everybody start contributing to it, especially understanding sustainability. Like for example, we are at home, we try to clean our home, but whatever dirt we have, we try to put it on the roads. Similarly, if we find world is one home, and we try to take smaller steps towards it. And there is a unified curriculum, because sustainability does not say that if America need to follow this, India need to follow something different. No. Sustainable goals are common. If everybody understand that and follow a uniform code, I think we all together can very well easily achieve whatever sustainability goals are.
So, according to me, the lifestyle, there should be some change. For example I'm telling, your mobile phone, you use for 6 months or 1 year and throw it away. That goes to the landfill. If it goes to the landfill, it occupies the land. Instead of using it for 6 months, 1 year, if you use it for more time, maybe 3 years, 4 years, then we are doing something good for the sustainability, because we are avoiding the use of new virgin materials, as well as we are avoiding the landfill, the area, land available for landfill. So whatever products we use, we have to use for maximum time. It is not that we don't have money, we cannot afford to buy a new mobile phone. It is the nature. Nature cannot produce a new one. In the last 30 years, we have lost more than 80% of the biomass insects from the planet. So this planet is not only for human beings, this planet is for all the species. Life on land, life underwater, all are important. Our soil is becoming sand. The organic content in the soil is not there. If you go into rainforest, the organic content should be at least 70%. Normal agriculture soil, the organic content should be at least 3%. But for example, in India, the organic content in the soil is less than 0.5%. We are in the verge of desertification. We are converting the agricultural land into residential buildings, industries. So the land available for food production is reducing. Some study shows that in 2040, we will be producing 40% less food. When food is not there 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, there could be a number of civil wars around the planet. Whatever civilization we have built for 500,000 years, everything will be broken down when there is a shortage of food on the ground. This is the reality that has happened many times in our history, and once again it is being predicted by the top researchers in the world. Soil is the habitat upon which zillions of lives thrive. Because of that thriving life, we grow food, we get vegetables, we get fruits, everything. But we are losing the biodiversity. So we didn't talk about the soil. It is very important that our focus should become soil, because soil is the most significant carbon sink. Carbon dioxide, instead of going up, it will go down because that is required for food production. So if the soil is fixed, climate change is fixed. Soil is the largest water soak on the planet. Therefore, if soil is fixed, water is fixed. Soil is rich, then the vegetation will happen, trees, plants will grow. So air pollution is fixed. If the soil is rich, food production will happen locally. No need to import, export food. We can avoid transportation, energy for transportation. So energy is fixed to some extent. If the soil is rich, we will not use packaging. We will avoid chemical preservatives. We will avoid plastics use. So we get organic, healthy food. So health issues are fixed. So if the soil is fixed, everything else will be fixed. So this is the legacy we have received from our previous generation. We have to pass it on as living soil to our future generations. Thank you.
Just to answer your question around culture, because culture is a very, very complex, interesting term. I think that culture, it's a very, very slow burner. It takes time, it takes generations. We're here in a capacity of higher education, but I believe that to develop a culture, it has to start much, much earlier. So we perhaps need to knock down that panel, that barrier there, and take in our colleagues in second and primary level education. Children are like sponges, you know. As we grow, we lose that. So I think starting very early is very, very important. But looking at, just to go back to what my colleague said earlier about coming up with some sort of a uniform goals, keeping things simple. It's as things, sometimes we start off out with great aspirations, we're highly motivated, but we're inclined to be causes of our own self-destruction almost because we complicate things. So I think we need to rein in projects every so often to go back to basics in terms of what we're trying to achieve and keeping the goals very, very simple. However, we do need to be reined in, so there has to be a link with what we're trying to achieve, and be it accreditation for programs, sustainability of institutions. So when it comes to that, you know, rock bottom stuff, this is what we need to get our backsides in gear here to make this actually happen. So I think some of those key points are very, very important for culture to develop, because it's such a slow burner, and because sometimes we can get lazy or fatigued and demotivated. It needs to be reined in, and how do we do that? So for projects, that needs to be considered at every stage of the project, I believe.